So, okay, welcome to the May 24th reading of Light Verse in Dark Times. I'm delighted to see so many of you coming back and also here to read. We have a great lineup today, as always. I'm going to start off. Oh, I forgot to, let me do the mute thing so that people who need to sneeze or whatever can sneeze in peace. 1 minute. Hang on. Okay. Before we start with today's reading, I just want to announce who will be reading next week, May 31st, same time, same link. We will be having Bruce Bennett, Dan Campion, Susan DeSola, Nicole Caruso Garcia, Susan McLean, and Wendy Sloan. So I'm looking forward to that. And today we have a wonderful lineup as well. And we're going to start with someone who was supposed to read last week, but had technical difficulties. So I'm going to briefly introduce Gail White to you again. And Gail is going to read one or two poems. Last week I did my best to sub in for Gail and read some of her very funny things that we've published in Light, and I understand she's got something new today. Gail has been part of the formalist poetry movement from its very beginning, has outlived some of its journals, and still submits to all she can find. She's proud to be a contributing editor of Light, and we are very glad to have her at Light as a contributing editor. And she's also a frequent contributor to Lighten Up Online. Her book Asperity Street and her chapbook collection Catechism can be found on Amazon. She's the resident cat lady of Breaux Bridge, Louisiana. And Gail, you just need to unmute yourself.
Can you
okay. Yes. Yes.
Okay. Thank you for letting me come back just so you can hear my voice. I wanted to recite for you a short poem that I would have read you last week, but my screen froze on me, and Melissa could not read this for me because she didn't have it. It is so new. This is its first appearance in public, and it is called Snails. This morning at my garbage can, just underneath the lid, 2 snails in the embrace of love, connubially hid. Who knows what dangers they had passed, how hard they had to climb in order to achieve at last this interchange of slime. I left you unmolested, snails, beneath your plastic shelf, because on Friday nights, I look ridiculous myself. Thank you.
That's great.
Gail, thank you so much. It was really nice to finally hear you able to read. Yeah, thank you. Our next reader is Robert W. Crawford. Bob has published 2 books of poetry, The Empty Chair, 2011, winner of the Richard Wilbur Award, and Too Much Explanation Can Ruin a Man, 2005. His sonnets have twice won the Howard Nemeroff Sonnet Award. He's a longtime member of the Powwow River Poets of Newburyport, Massachusetts. Currently, he's the director of Frost Farm Poetry in Derry, New Hampshire, which includes the Hyla Brook Reading Series, the Frost Farm Poetry Conference, and the Frost Farm Poetry Prize. He was named Derry, New Hampshire's first poet laureate in January of 2017. He lives in Chester, New Hampshire with his wife, the poet Mitch Goldberg, who will be reading with us shortly. Bob, welcome.
Hello, everybody. Well, thank you, Melissa, and thank you, Light, for hosting this event. You mentioned being in Chester, New Hampshire. I wanted to be outside. It's a gorgeous day, but the wind is howling, and it would just be, no one would have heard me at all. I'm starting with a poem called The KT Boundary, and that starts with an epigraph. The Cretaceous Tertiary, or KT boundary, is a distinct layer in the rock strata laid down about 65 million years ago. Its creation coincides with the mass extinction of the dinosaurs, and it contains high levels of iridium, an element found in asteroids. So the KT boundary. On top of the food chain, they had few concerns. It was bathwater warm. There were plenty of ferns. A Cretaceous Isaiah could claim he divined that God in his wisdom had clearly designed a world without end for the dinosaur kind. Then out of the blue, it all changed for their lot. One day they were kings, and then they were not. All over the world, the great dinosaurs died. They starved, or they froze, or were suddenly fried. They found out the hard way the prophet had lied. Yet from the beginning, the end had been known, foretold in the orbit of one giant stone. It smashed into earth, ash covered the land. What happened to T-Rex, explained by the band, a line of iridium drawn in the sand. It circles and circles in this grand design, a ballet of masses, mostly benign. But sometimes the circles go bump in the night. So don't say I'm silly and switch off the light when I wake up feeling that something's not right. Okay, and the next one really it was written, I think, 5 years ago. So this, though it's appropriate to now, it's called The End is Near. The last few monks retreat in monasteries. The vigilant in town consult well-thumbed survival guides. And all the caged canaries left in the mines have recently succumbed. Tales reach us of some vast deforestation. Down at the corner store, those in the know predict the president's assassination. And any day now, Beetlejuice will blow. Although I'm wary of a stranger's touch, I too hear rumors of an epidemic. The wearing of protective gear is such a waste of time when entropy is systemic. No need to build a shelter. Let down your guard. The end is always near. Come, kiss me hard. And this is a poem that was published in Light. It's called Talking to Dead People on Television. This also has an epigraph. The audience in psychic John Edwards' TV show, Crossing Over, is extremely eager to hear what the dead have to say. And that's from TV Weekly. Do people really want to hear the dead from some omniscient, privileged point of view, communicating through a medium's head? I hope the dead have better things to do. We cherish memories. We speak no ill. What if they don't live up to that same standard? Are we so sure time spent as spirits will turn our departed kinder, milder mannered? There's fantasy, then there's reality. If free to sneak about in the hereafter, can you imagine what the dead would see? Let's label it for what it is, disaster. There's a quote, I did appreciate the funeral, but the ceremony was a little short. The plywood coffin lid was barely shut before you booked a flight to that resort. Your Connie doesn't fit into my gown. And Roger, don't forget that one small favor. I thought we buried loved ones 6 feet down, in part because we wanted them to stay there. And this one's called Calypso Calls on Penelope. Did you buy that load of crap? The bit about the need to be a handyman, the touching speech on being home. Bullshit. I'm here to tell you why he really ran. He says he's back to fix what needs repair. Truth, dear, he couldn't keep up with his sex. Outrageous games, immortal underwear, positions that required him to flex. Blah, blah, he made that bed, he wants to care. Fact is, he's slowing down. He's often tired. You've noticed that he started losing hair, how more and more he fails to get inspired. Penelope, honey, you ought to know. He didn't want to leave. I made him go. And I'll end with a poem that has a little story behind it. Billy Collins, I heard him once speak in Exeter to about a room with 1,000 people. And I admire him greatly, the way he's Jerry Seinfeld of American poets, the way he can command a room. And he's especially with his comedy. And of course, he's making fun of sonnets, which he loves to do. And one of the things that he said was, no one could write a sexy sonnet. Well, I took that as a challenge, and I came up with this called Kitchen Remodeling. I know I should be listening to your description of the changes that you've made, since you've implied that following this tour, I'd take the task to be your kitchen aid. I should note where you've moved the lobster pot, but I'm distracted by your lips, your smile, the way your hips rest up against, well, not your hips exactly, the edge of cool white tile. I know you're telling me about the brand new island and the cabinet space inside, but it's a blur. I hope you'll understand. Forgive the fact that I've grown glassy-eyed and lost, imagining what I could do on this expansive countertop with you.
You're naughty, Bob. Great poem. Nice work.
The victory.
That's the only thing Billy Collins has been wrong about.
Wow.
He always puts himself. Actually, no.
Thank you so much. That was great, Bob. And again, sorry for rudely muting you again so that we can hear the next reader, but it's got to happen. Our next reader is Jean L Creeling. Jean is a professor of music at Bridgewater State University in Massachusetts and the author of 2 collections of poetry, both available at Amazon. Arts and Letters, Arts ampersand Letters ampersand Love 2018 and The Truth in Dissonance 2014. She's a past winner of the Able Muse Wright Prize, the Great Lakes Commonwealth of Letters Sonnet Contest, the Kelsey Books Metrical Poetry Prize, a Laureate's Prize in the Maria W. Faust Sonnet Contest, 3 New England Poetry Club prizes, and the String Poet Prize. Jean, welcome. And you need to unmute yourself.
Thank you, Melissa. And thanks to all of you for tuning in. It's fun to see your faces. Many of you are spending more time than usual with your families. This first poem, published a few years ago in Lighten Up Online, was inspired by my family. Games my family plays. One sibling brings the Pinot Noir, another brings the pie. 2 cook, one sets the table, we're a team. When later we do dishes, one to wash and one to dry, cooperation rules, so it would seem. Despite our childhood bickering, we like each other now, and we no longer call each other names or pull each other's hair. In fact, it's quite amazing how we get along until it's time for games. In Scrabble, someone never gets the Z, so he insists. In poker, someone always cries, "Misdeal." When we attempt charades, we're less teammates than anarchists, and we play Clue with homicidal zeal. We hotly vie for every point, as if our lives depended on triple words or aces over 3s. We gloat, we groan, and some of us get grumpy or offended by shouts of gin or worse indignities. We laugh more than we argue, and we have a lot of fun, and we pretend there's no real competition. But someone's wondering if someone else has had work done, and someone else is hiding her suspicion that someone else has gained a pound or 2, or maybe 20. And most agree that someone's hair looks brassy, and someone else is confident that she could teach us plenty and wishes that her family were more classy. We keep a few things to ourselves and tell a few white lies. We keep the peace and leave the rivalry at tables where regrets are few and where appraising eyes judge only bad deals in Monopoly. Those of you who are academics like me may relate to this sonnet called Speaker at an Academic Conference. He's only here to add another line to his presumably thin resume. So if we listen or we don't, it's fine with him. But I'm offended by the way he doesn't look up once, not once. He cares exactly not at all if he's engaged this audience. We sit on cushioned chairs. We've been well fed. We're comfortably caged within beige walls. And I sincerely try to stay awake. But his beige monotone and pointless PowerPoint display defy my best intentions. Somewhere in his drone might lurk some wisdom, but I'll never know. It's all too beige, and so to sleep I go. This next one is also a sonnet. It's called 1,000 Clerks. The title comes from its epigraph, a line from an odd little book called ABBA, ABBA by Anthony Burgess. He wrote, "There is a whole wing of your mind's mansion unknown to you, where work is already proceeding on your notion. 1,000 clerks are scratching away." And so I wrote, "That might explain why crossword clues make sense when you've ignored the puzzle for an hour, and why your pen so ably reinvents first drafts weeks later. Some cerebral power keeps functioning when you think you've quit trying. Rogue laborers who may dig up the phrase your sonnet needs. Alas, there's no relying on these non-union clerks. They sleep for days, don't answer when you cry out in frustration, and don't react to reprimand or thanks. They scratch away at their own inclination, 1,000 hands that might fill in your blanks. Not merely scribes or lackeys, they create your finest work, but yes, you have to wait." This last poem is very recent, as you can tell from the title, The Introvert and the Pandemic. I'm good at being inside and inert. I read, I write, I work, I drink big mugs of herbal tea. And so when the alert was sounded, social rules drew only shrugs from me. I was well qualified to skirt the threat of this most dangerous of bugs, to maintain health and safety, to avert the need for doctors, hospitals, and drugs. Or so I thought. But now I must assert that it's not easy. There's a need that tugs at every heart. Though I'm an introvert, I recognize this truth. I must have hugs. Thank you.
See,
Jean, thank you so much. Oh, I really enjoyed especially hearing about your family games. My family is very big on games as well. Our next reader is Christopher Scribner. Chris's poetry, satire, and humor have appeared in the Quarter Day Review, Euphony, Light, Untamed Ink, Parody, Rat's Ass Review, Satire, Dribble Dabble Review, Journal of Irreproducible Results, several anthologies of the Poetry Box, and other publications. Some of his proudest moments as a satirist / humorist were when his work appeared in professional journals, including Survey of Ophthalmology, Professional Psychology, Research and Practice, and Psychotherapy Bulletin, as he has a special fondness for poking fun at the sciences, something he's discouraged from doing in his job as a psychology professor. His first publications in Light appeared in 1997 in our print days, and a few dozen more have followed. One of those early pieces in light was a poem of 17 words, 6 of which comprised the title, that he had written at age 16 on a boring afternoon while working at a snow cone stand at the St. Louis Zoo. That summer, he also honed his bare-handed fly-catching skills by baiting the creatures with snow cone syrup dribbled onto the counter. Both the poetry writing and the fly-catching skills have continued to be beneficial in his life. He completed an MFA in writing a few years ago, struggling through the program because his teachers often wanted him to produce writing without rhyme and meter, and he had trouble shutting those things off. So Chris, welcome, and feel free to turn on the rhyme and meter.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Melissa, for allowing that. That was part of my plan. A lot of the poetry that I write is in reaction to things that I read or hear about, and so I have a lot of epigraphs, like a couple of the preceding readers have also. This first poem is in reaction to a mailing that I received, and it was from a medical practice, and part of the mailing said, the forehead lift or brow lift surgery corrects a sagging or low position of the eyebrows. And this captured my interest, and so I ended up composing a poem entitled An IQ Like You. If an intellectual is never what you're deemed to be, this drastic plastic surgery can make you one, or seem to be. Expanding your frontalis gives you license to be potty, a snotty, condescending member of the nouveau literati. After all, it's just the beetled status of your eyebrows, preventing your ascension to your rightful place amongst the highbrows. Once you have that look of erudition, just ignore those visitors who scoff as you discourse on your Renoir. Play Trivial Pursuit and cheat so victory's more than happenstance. And then with every win, adopt your fake Phi Beta Kappan stance. Smirk while glancing down your nose, I do not suffer fools. Then throw away those faux degrees from correspondence schools. Curb yourself and cease to tell how you rejected Mensa and trash those unread literary mags on the credenza. And if you're not a polyglot, as they think you should be, say, English sufficed for Jesus Christ. It's good enough for me. Moving on. Let's see. Okay, this one was a response to an article that I read in the newspaper. It's an old poem, so there were newspapers that I read back then. The subhead of this article said, strengthening the possibility of finding evidence of life on the red planet. Scientists recently discovered that Mars has more in common with Earth than previously thought. The Pathfinder robot uncovered evidence that Mars was once warm and moist. And so I wrote a poem called Warm and Moist. Astronomers, prepare to hoist your telescopes in search of moisture. There it is, now give it cheer, for Mars was once a biosphere. The source of every scientist's mirth. Mars warm and moist, just like the Earth. Yes, warm and moist, the most erotic fact revealed by means robotic. Join now in the scientist's mirth. Mars warm and moist, just like the Earth. But tepidness, humidity can hardly hold a thrill for me. What earthly denizen rejoiced at living midst things warm and moist? Like muggy hot St. Louis summers, the underarms of pudgy drummers, the folds in sumo wrestlers' thighs, and tear ducts in a mourner's eyes. Like fungal groves and rotting trees, the sprayed secretions of a sneeze, the spittle from a hacking cough, and soggy sweat socks freshly doffed, a fetid suppurating wound, a school bus window freshly mooned, protective cup on hockey goalie, the petri dish that grows E. coli, that spongy disc submerged in urinals, and blood that spurts from fallen kernels. Heaven can wait, still life can gall me, not all's great, that's damp and balmy. I was curious to see whether the endings of these things would be self-evident or not. All right, this next piece also was in response to a news story that I saw. The subheadline here said, "A judge dismissed as frivolous a lawsuit in which prisoners said they should be served butter instead of margarine and be provided with salad bars and brunches on weekends and holidays." And when I saw this, what came to mind immediately was a poem that I recall from my high school English class. It was by Richard Lovelace called "To Althea from Prison." Some of you are probably familiar with it. It starts with, "When love with unconfined wings hovers within my gates, and my divine Althea brings to whisper at the grates." It's that one. And so I, riffing on that, composed this poem, which is called "To Al the Cook from Prison." In prison, that confining thing, the menu doesn't rate. So from the commissary bring fresh Parmesan to grate. Pesto, untangled angel hair, a better round of brie, a succulent, well-ripened pear, and flavored forms of tea. We'd love if patéed Melba rounds on waiters' platters came. We'd bow deloused heads at mounds, a freshly carved game. Each thirsty thief in wine would steep the shame of 1 to 3, as wishes that ripple through drunken sleep form dreams of liberty. So green and leafy spinach buy and fill a jello ring. With French cuisine or something Thai, we dine just like a king. And we shall voice aloud how good the choice of food should be, if only the almighty judge would hear us and agree. But cheese balls do not a prison make, nor salad bars a cage. Mine's innocent, not guilty, take a brunch on holidays. If we had freedom, had a stove, had done our time, were free, we'd then have all the food we love, the perks of liberty. And that's that. Okay, this is my second to last one, is the only one I've included here that doesn't have an epigraph with it, so enjoy that uniqueness, if you will. I am a psychologist, and I have a special affinity for psychological topics, including the topic of stress management. And so I was pondering poetry one day and decided that I needed to write a poem called "Stress Management for Poets." So I hope this is beneficial. If words do not exactly rhyme, they're at the end of every line, and lilting light alliteration forces wit's obliteration. Poets' coffers will be less full, and writing verse becomes more stressful. When poets start to feel depressed, how might that mood best be addressed? A quick shift in meter is clearly what's needed, a palpable change, almost tactile. But don't truncate your trochees or squeeze your spondees, and for heaven's sake, don't pterodactyl. Use some light tripping feet, make your stanzas replete with the happy, carefree anapestic. If that makes you feel worse, then try writing free verse and ignore the whole stressed and unstressed shtick. The end. All right, and for this last one, Melissa, just as a little bit of nostalgia, I decided to include this. This poem is old enough that it refers to film photography. And this one was actually my very first publication in Light back in the old days. The epigraph here: an exhibitionist was arrested after the woman he exposed himself to photographed him in the act with the camera she happened to be carrying. Now that's a great story in itself. But it also led to the poem called "On Camera Flash." He spotted his prey, felt an urge to display, then approached her, his mind in the gutter. She saw him, she wheeled, then she set depth of field and unflappably triggered the shutter. He was perfectly framed, no one else could be blamed, so he ranted and lost all composure. She said, "Shut the hell up, I'm off to develop this role of indecent exposures." His nasty compulsion was trapped in emulsion, an icon which helped turn the man in. The moral is this dictum: beware of the victim with Nikon, Minolta, or Canon.
That's good. That's good.
Thanks so much, Chris. I really enjoyed that. And what a lot of, self-possessed smarts it would take to like capture this guy who's flashing you. I don't know if I could do that, but I'm going to be ready. Okay. Our next reader is Karen Peterson. Karen is an American reporter, photojournalist, and adventurer who has traveled the world extensively. In her literary life, her work has appeared nationally and internationally in a variety of publications. Her poems have been translated into Persian and Spanish, and her first book, a true story set in the Southeast Asian drug trade, is forthcoming. Last year, she was the first person in the history of the Pushcart Prize to receive 5 nominations in the categories of short story, poetry, and flash. Her website is https://Karen Petersen, and that's SEN and KAREN, KarenPetersonWriter.com. And Karen, welcome, and please take it away.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I decided I had too many cat poems, so I wrote an onion poem yesterday, but I did keep a cat poem in for Gail. Is she still here? Alas, I think she's gone. Oh well. So this is called The Lady of Shallots, with apologies to Tennyson. Plump and pale, I lie in the sun, surrendering, allowing the heat to strip away my layers like a sweet Vidalia onion. Perhaps I'm being too optimistic, and I'm really one of those harsh onions that make people cry, which must be cooked ever so slowly in butter's soft embrace to become tasty again. My scapes rock in the breeze, making me want to jive like a chive, but no dance for me now, it's too hot, and instead I reek like a leek. I'm certainly part of the alliums, cultivated, earthy, and memorable, but more than a scallion, a rapscallion indeed, with just a touch of shallot too. If you misbehave with me and eat too much, it will soon become clear we're through. This is called Kushka Cat. The fanned out tail, the careful walk, aside from sleep, he loved to talk. Growls, meows, ecstatic cries, sometimes even a few small sighs. In later years, snores from his bed came quickly from his small bowed head. His blinking golden eyes, so wise, once asleep could be surprised. But even though he seemed to dream, quiver and twitch in fantasy scenes, a low trembling throaty purr coming from within his tawny fur always showed he loved us so. This is In the Garden. The gophers have eaten the morning glories again, I tell the dog morosely. Her tail wags happily, it's of no concern to her. Holes filled with coffee grounds, dog turds, chicken wire. I deceive myself into thinking I'm winning the war, but I suspect it's futile. Still, each morning brings a new surprise. The snail's slimy trails amid the wilted leaves and chopped off stalks, the endless mocking of the nearby hermit thrush with her full-throated song and bobbing head. Nature is laughing. My cat frantically chases a lizard, only to find a piece of its tail wildly squirming in his clamped mouth. But the lizard vanishes through the fence near the oriental lilies, perfuming the air and slowly nodding as if in assent. This is called Springing. Gamboling lambkins and trumpeting swans, kissing moo cows and frisky pink prawns, the air is abuzz with busy bees being, and tomcats a-catting with felines a-fleeing. Yes, Spring has arrived, and with it good cheer, so kick up your heels, you've got nothing to fear. Frigid winter has gone, and so has the ice. Love's all around you, just a roll of the dice. This is Noah's Ark. I love the story of Noah and the Ark, mainly because you can twist it around and still maintain the essence of the story. It could be sci-fi, or it could possibly be some crazy Middle Eastern guy holed up in a boat, drunk and stranded at the edge of a vast desert. You can tell it straight as a myth or go for realism. Basically do anything you want and still remain true to the ancient story. I hope Noah put the dinosaurs in the bottom, or the whole thing would have tipped over. Always wondered about the insects, and the presence of those lurking vultures is too painful to contemplate. In the old manuscript's drawings, is that a pie on the top deck? Was there anything in Genesis about Noah saving a pie? My feeling is that it may be a grain store, though I like the idea that he saved the blackbirds by hiding them in a pie. And last, this is oh, sorry, I don't look up. Sorry about that. This is something I wrote years ago for a friend of mine's 2 children. And it ran in what was back then called Cat Fancy magazine. And then in recent years was recycled into the Wild Word publication in Berlin. This is called The Walk. It's a simple rhyming poem. I went for a walk in a dark gladed wood among the ferns and hellebores. An orange-striped cat was by my side, and I wanted to see what he could. We wandered through the leaf-laden brush between the pines and oaks. As shadows fell, the forest rose, and we were alone in the hush. I made a wish to stay the night, meandering through the glade. The moon rose high so it could see the cat, the trees, and me. Dark green and silver all plants appeared, like ghostly spirits they were. Our silent companions everywhere, their world we did not fear. As morning came with sunlight's smile, the magic spell was broken, but it will return any time I remember to stop in the woods a while. That's it.
Thanks, Karen.
Karen, thank you very much for that reading and the great variety of poems, and for continuing our snail motif. I hope that means that we'll have some more snail poems from Midge and Leslie. We'll see. Our next reader is Mitch Goldberg. Midge has received the Richard Wilbur Poetry Award for her book Snowman's Code, as well as the Howard Nemeroff Sonnet Award. Her poems have appeared in Light, Lighten Up Online, First Things, Appalachia, and on Garrison Keillor's A Writer's Almanac, among others. Her other books include Flume Ride and the children's book My Best Ever Grandpa. She's a longtime member of the Powwow River Poets and has an MFA from the University of New Hampshire. She lives in Chester, New Hampshire with her family, 2 cats, an ever-changing number of chickens, and at this moment, 90 tomato plants, some of which are sharing her living quarters and some of which have recently been planted. She's very happy to have them moving out this weekend. I can imagine what it's like to have all those tomatoes, though. That sounds wonderful. Thank you, Midge, and welcome.
Thanks, Melissa. Thanks for doing this. It's great listening to everyone and seeing everyone's face. I'm going to start with a poem that was published in Light. It's called Smart Tales, squished together like a smartphone. My take on modern fairy tales in this age of technology. So, Smart Tales. Red Riding Hood. Let's say that you're partial to hoods, and you're off to bring Grandma the goods. Those teeth are a hint, be ready to sprint. Verizon's 1 bar in these woods. Cinderella. Let's say that you have a new dress, and your boyfriend is anyone's guess. Go enjoy being posh, as long as your squash has a clock and a good GPS. Snow White. It's not smart when you're home all alone, though an apple is fine for a phone, to take fruit that looks sweet from a crone that you meet while a battle is on for the throne. Sleeping Beauty. Let's say that she's stuck in a castle, in a spell that's really quite facile. Why fight the unseen? Can you kiss through a screen? Use Skype and avoid all the hassle. The Beast talks to Beauty. Are you sick of being seen as a cutie, though you've brains and a strong sense of duty? While my looks tend to hinder my chances on Tinder, swipe right to see my inner beauty. So this next one is different. It's called The Perks. Why is Satan not too hot in hell? He doesn't seem to suffer like the rest who languish there. You'd almost say he's blessed. He's acclimated to the place so well. Perhaps he has a fast metabolism, but he can't be impervious to heat. That would be kind of silly and defeat the purpose of this weather-changing schism. No, there's a different way he disobeys. An air-conditioned office where he stays. A well-stocked mini-fridge that would entice God himself. Cold beer and oh, the ice. To his chagrin, he cannot let God know. From time to time, he mops his brow for show. So this was inspired by a trip to Brooklyn. I was in a coffee shop and this young couple comes up and the woman orders her coffee with her soy, this and that and whatever. And the man's like, coffee, 3 sugars, heavy cream. And I thought that relationship is never going to last. So this is another one that was in Light called Brooklyn Personals. Soy milk seeking coffee mate. Almond substitutes are great. So are coconut or rice. Hemp would certainly suffice. Fridge is tiny, bills are high. Only want 1 milk to buy. Half and half need not apply. So here's a new one. I'd emailed you, Melissa. I don't know if we are R-rated here or PG. Okay, R, excellent, okay. It's called Pharaoh's Daughter, and it has an epigraph. Pharaoh's daughter made him her son. She named him Moses, explaining, I drew him out of the water. Exodus 2:10. Pharaoh's daughter. Really? I find a baby in the water? I've got to know my father's killing Jews. And then some girl appears, dutiful daughter, loving sister, there with helpful news. She might just know a wet nurse for the baby. What am I, awkward plot device? Convenient miracle? Much later, they say, maybe it was an act of faith, and they are lenient. Marry me off, give me a name. Fuck you, Batya, daughter of God. I'm Moses's mother, skinned knees, homework, and then one day he knew and left behind our life to lead another. I always had a future and a past. It's only God who made me seem half-assed. And I'll finish this up with another one that was published in Light, and which has kind of become my funny Margaritaville. It's Harpsichord. What happened to the excuse me, harpsichord? What happened to the harpsichord for whom the great composers scored? Scarlatti, Purcell, Bach, and Bird. Those Goldberg variations stirred the soul until one holy day Cristofori began to play. The piano's forte sounding loud and soft. And suddenly the crowd was wowed. Indeed, the horde was floored. Oh Lord, we're bored with the harpsichord. So many levers, so few keys to do what pianos do with ease. The final blow was who was siding with pianos? Mozart, Haydn. Over the years, few played it. Lurch, some vicar at some village church, a carpenter out in Seattle preserved the craft, an uphill battle. But honestly, it just sounds tinny, grating like my cousin Vinny. Just because of a simple hammer, pianos still get all the glamour. The harpsichord's flat out of luck, with no one left to give a pluck. Thank you.
Imagination and creativity.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Mitch, thank you. I see you had 2 poems in the R territory. That was awesome, pushing the envelope. Those are great, thank you. I love the lurch rhyme. Our last reader for today is Leslie Monsour. Leslie was born in Hollywood, California, but grew up in Mexico City, Chicago, and Panama. Her poetry collections include The Alarming Beauty of the Sky and The House Sitter, winner of the Finishing Line Press Open Chapbook Competition. She has received a fellowship in literature from the National Endowment for the Arts, 5 Pushcart Prize nominations, and just this month, an honorable mention in the Frost Farm Prize for Metrical Poetry. Her monograph, Reina P. Espaillat, A Critical Introduction, will be reissued next year in a newly revised, expanded edition from Franciscan University Press. And I'm looking forward to that, having read the original version. So Leslie, welcome, and please take it away. You have to unmute, Leslie.
I did it. Okay. Thank you so much, Melissa, for providing this much needed forum of mirth every week. And thank all of you for bringing me so much pleasure. I'll begin with an epigram from my group of uncalled for epigrams. It's apropos of the poem Daniel Galef read last week, which involved a takeoff on Robert Frost's Fire and Ice. This one appeared a while back in Lighten Up Online. Frost revisited. Frost knew enough of hatred and desire to say the world would end in ice or fire. But wind is deadlier, it seems to me, from what I've seen of sheer stupidity. And the next poem was originally published in the incomparably superb Light magazine. It involves 2 trends we've seen happening lately. The first is the reported increase in alcohol consumption, which I would know nothing about. And also the second trend is the postponement of elective surgeries. Take cataract surgery, for instance. Postponing it could lead to clouded vision and misreading something, say a wine advertisement, while leafing through a magazine. This poem's epigraph is the actual advertising slogan as it appeared in the magazine. On misreading a wine ad. Wine made to go with the foods you love. The fools I love drink any old wine, whether red, rosé, or white. A wine made to go with these chums of mine should flow freely and last all night. The wine that is made for the fools I adore, yours truly included, I fear, is the wine that says yes to the clamor for more. Its abundance is what we hold dear. As long as there's plenty when push comes to shove, from late afternoon until dawn, Any wine's made to go with the fools I love, as long as the wine's never gone. Okay, I have made an attempt to meet the COVID challenge, and I've composed a couple of social distancing poems. This audience will be familiar with the genre vers de société. And following Philip Larkin's example, I've used the same title, but with a contemporary twist. Vers de société à la distance. My nitwit neighbor who lives down the street and can't tell 7 inches from 6 feet came jogging by and caught me unaware while checking mail and asked me if I'd care to join her later outside on her deck for wine. I felt her breathing down my neck and quickly backed away. "It's BYO," she chirped. I faltered, "Gee Liz, I don't know." "Come on," she said. "We all could use some wine." Oh God, thought I, she's like a porcupine. Too close for comfort, also too insistent. These days I've grown increasingly resistant to punchlines I see coming, followed by obligatory laughter and a sigh. I stared at her and wondered, what could she want with a cynical old shit like me? Still, what about my brand new linen blouse? Am I to simply wear it around the house? No baseball games, no lying on the beach. I hardly even dare to eat a peach or part my hair. Perhaps I'll bring my flask. I could take swigs from underneath my mask. And single malt does ever so much more than Chardonnay to turn a crashing bore into a scintillating, vibrant wit. Nah, it's a waste of time. Get out of it. Besides, I'm happier safe at home. Besides, I'm happier staying safe at home. Watching the evening news or reading some poetry back issues, of which I have a few, or staring out the window at the view. Watching the bougainvillea blossoms drift in silence while the evening breezes shift and night's ink washes color from the day. Oh, hell then. Sure, Liz, what time did you say? And finally, this is a much beloved old ballad by the immortal Scottish bard Robbie Burns, and it's called Coming Through the Virus. All right, here we go. Gin a body meet a body coming through the virus. Don't come near to me, my dear, though you may feel desirous. Nay, laddie, may lie down with me. Nay, laddie, steal my heart. 'Tis all because the lads and I must stay 6 feet apart. In a body, kiss a body, need a body, ask. Ask or not, there'll be no kisses even with a mask. Nay, laddie may lie down with me. Nay, laddie, steal my heart. 'Tis all because the lads and I must stay 6 feet apart. In a body meet a body, jogging up the path. We must beware lest we might share our particles of breath. Nay, laddie may lie down with me. Nay, laddie, hear me sigh. 'Tis all because there'll be no hanky-panky while we're coming through the virus.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yes.
Amazing.
Wonderful.
Fantastic.
Oh my goodness. I don't think I can follow that with anything except abject admiration. I fall at your feet, Leslie. Thank you. Another great reading, everybody. Thank you so much. One more time, I'm going to remind you of who's coming next week. Same time, same bat station, same link. Bruce Bennett, Dan Campion, Susan DeSola, Nicole Caruso Garcia, Susan McLean, and Wendy Sloan. I'm looking forward to hearing all of you read. And again, thank you so much to everybody who read today. Your readings were just tremendous. And now get the hell out there and enjoy this beautiful day. At least I hope you're having a beautiful day. And I'm going to unmute you if people want to visit for a bit, and then we'll say goodbye. So thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Melissa.
Bye.
Thank you,
again,
Rita.
Melissa.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Nice to see everybody's face.